Most narcissists always come back. Sooner or later, they show up again, like nothing ever happened. But here's the thing, even before they come back, your mind starts replaying moments, small details, conversations, texts, voices. You start wondering, what if they're thinking about me? What if they miss me? And that tiny flicker of hope, it grows faster than you realize. It pulls at you. It makes your chest tighten, your stomach twist. So when one of them doesn't, when they disappear and never return, it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like something is wrong with you. Because now the question changes. It's not, why do they come back? It's, why didn't they come back to me? Pause a left. And that question can stay in your mind for months, sometimes years. Because deep down, you know how they are. You've seen it. You've heard the stories. They always come back. So why not this time? Pause. Here's what almost no one tells you. When a narcissist doesn't come back, it's not random. It's not confusion. And it's definitely not because you didn't matter. In fact, sometimes it means something much deeper and much harder to accept. And once you see it, you won't look at their silence the same way again. What most people believe is that when they don't come back, it means they forgot you, that they moved on, that you didn't matter enough. But the truth is, sometimes they don't come back because you stopped being useful. And that's not the same thing as not being important. Pause. That's what makes this so hard to accept. Because in the beginning, you were everything they wanted. You gave attention, you gave energy, you gave emotional access. You tried to understand them, or you tried to fix things, you stayed. And for a narcissistic dynamic, that combination is powerful, not because of love, but because of supply. Attention is supply, reaction is supply, emotion is supply. Even your pain becomes supply. And as long as that supply exists, they stay connected. Even if they leave, they keep a door open because they know they can come back. That's why so many of them do. Not because they miss you, but because the connection still feeds something in them. Pause 11. And here's something few people realize. Even before they physically return, they linger in your mind in subtle ways you might not notice. A word you said, a gesture you made, every detail you left behind becomes part of their calculation. They replay moments quietly, testing, evaluating. And while you feel the space they left, they are quietly measuring your reactions. Every shift in your energy, every pause, every flicker of hope, it tells them what they need to know. It tells them if the door is still open or if it's closing forever. They're already measuring you, watching how you respond, listening to how your energy shifts. Every laugh, every text, every sign of life you show. It's like a radar for them. They're seeing if you're still predictable, if you're still feeding the pattern, if you're still available. And that's when the subtle shift starts. But something shifts when you start pulling back. Not dramatically, not loudly, just subtly. You respond less, you question more, you stop reacting the same way, you stop chasing. And at first, they feel it, they test it, they push. They try to get the same reaction again. Sometimes through silence, sometimes through distance, sometimes through confusion. Because they expect you to come back to the role you always played. But when that doesn't happen, something breaks in the dynamic. Not the connection, the control. And this is where it changes. Because once the control is gone, the relationship no longer works the way they need it to. It becomes unpredictable, It becomes harder to manage. It stops being efficient. And narcissistic patterns are built on efficiency, on emotional return, on control. So instead of trying to rebuild what no longer gives them the same result, they redirect to someone new, to someone more responsive, more available, more easy to read. And from the outside, it looks like they moved on, like they replaced you, like you didn't matter. But that's not what happened. What happened is you stopped fitting the pattern they rely on. You became someone they can't control the same way anymore. And for them, that's not attractive. Not because you lost value, but because you stopped being predictable. And this is the part most people don't realize. When a narcissist doesn't come back, it's often because coming back wouldn't give them what it's used to. The reactions, the access, the emotional hold. It's not the same anymore, and they know it, even if they never say it. Positive. So instead of risking losing control again, they choose distance. And that distance feels like rejection. But it's not rejection in the way you think, it's withdrawal from something they can no longer use the same way. And that's why it hurts so much. Because it forces you to face something uncomfortable. You weren't losing them when they left. You were losing them the moment you stopped being who they needed you to be. But there's another reason, and this one is harder to accept because it has nothing to do with what you gave and everything to do with what they felt or what they couldn't feel. Because sometimes they don't come back, not because you were easy to leave, but because you got too close, closer than they were prepared for, closer than they could control. And that changes everything because most people think narcissistic dynamics are shallow, surface level, replaceable, but that's not always true. Sometimes they feel something real, not in a healthy way, not in a stable way, but real enough to make them uncomfortable, real enough to expose something inside them they spend their whole life avoiding. And when that happens, they don't lean in, they retreat. Because real connection requires vulnerability. And vulnerability, it feels like loss of control. So instead of getting closer, they create distance, not slowly, not carefully, but suddenly, cold, confusing, almost cruel. Because for them, cutting off is easier than confronting what they feel. It's easier to disappear than to stay and not be in control. And this is why some of them never come back. Because coming back would mean feeling that again, facing that again, risking exposure again. And that's something they avoid at all costs. So they convince themselves of something else. That it wasn't that deep, that it wasn't that important, that you were the problem, that leaving was the right decision. Not because it's true, but because it protects them. Because if they admit what they actually felt, they lose the version of control they built around themselves. And they won't risk that, even if it means losing you completely. Positive. And from your side, this creates one of the most painful questions. If it was real, why didn't they fight for it? If it mattered, why did they disappear? And the answer is uncomfortable. They don't fight for what they can't control. They don't stay where they feel exposed. They don't return to what makes them feel vulnerable, even if a part of them wanted to. And this is what makes it so confusing, because you can feel that something was real. You can feel that something was different, and yet they're gone. No closure, no explanation, no return. Not because it meant nothing, but because it meant something they didn't know how to handle. And instead of learning, instead of growing, they chose the only thing that feels safe to them. Distance, silence, disconnection, pause. And that silence can feel louder than anything else because it leaves you with questions that were never answered and emotions that were never resolved. And this is where everything shifts because the question you've been asking is the wrong one. You keep asking, why didn't they come back? But the real question is, why would you want them to? Think about it. The same person who needed control, the same person who pulled away when things got real, the same person who left you with confusion instead of clarity, that's the person you're waiting for. Not because they were good for you, but because something in you is still attached to the version you believed in. The version that felt intense, that felt special, that felt different. But intensity is not the same as connection. And confusion is not the same as love. And this is the part most people don't want to face. If they didn't come back, they didn't lose you. You stepped out of a dynamic that no longer worked for them. And that's exactly why it can finally start working for you. Because the moment you stop waiting is the moment you take your power back. And when that happens, something else becomes clear. The way they used attention, the way they used distance, the way they pulled you in and then pushed you away. None of that was random, and none of that was just emotional. It followed a pattern most people only understand too late, especially when it comes to one specific area. The one that creates the strongest attachment, the strongest confusion, and the hardest detachment. Because what felt like desire wasn't always about desire. And what felt like connection wasn't always about connection. And once you see this, you can't unsee it.